First to speak is Ruth Breslin. Ruth, you are very welcome. And now I will turn the mic over to you.
Thank you so much, Christine. It's fantastic to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm going to get through the technical bit and hopefully share my screen with you all. Yes, there we are. So I'm with SERP, the Sexual Exploitation Research Program based in UCD, as Christine said. And over the last 3.5 years, we've done a number of, in fact, quite significant studies on the sex trade in Ireland. So I'm presenting some of the latest evidence on this now. So first of all, I just want to talk about, I suppose, the 3 key groups that we've researched that are involved in the trade: the women who are in prostitution, the sex buyers who purchase sexual access to those women, and the pimps and profiteers who financially benefit from the trade. So first, the women. This is a long list of the profile of the women, I suppose, but in short, to say that the vast majority of women in prostitution in Ireland are migrant women. Many are very young and many are very vulnerable. So we'll see 1,000 mainly migrant women involved at any one time, with over 40 nationalities represented in the Irish sex trade, from Latin America, from Central and Eastern Europe, and also from Africa in particular. On the most popular website, where the vast majority of women in prostitution in Ireland are advertised, you will find over 650 women advertised on a daily basis. As I said, many are young. 1/3 are advertised at the ages of between 18 and 25, with quite a lot of teenagers on there, age 18 and 19. In all of our studies with women, we found that many of them, as migrant women new to Ireland, have limited English, and in some cases no English at all when they first start off in the Irish sex trade. Many have very insecure immigration status. They might be undocumented or on a very short-term visa. Some are asylum seekers. We see that the women are highly mobile. They are moving or being moved all around the country for the purposes of prostitution. And that typically is to satisfy the demand from buyers, from sex buyers, for new faces, for new girls in all locations. So actually our research has found that a lot of women are NFA, of no fixed abode. They live and sleep in whatever brothel they're in and are moved from brothel to brothel at all times. So they have no stable accommodation, no stable place to live. We have found ample evidence in our research of direct coercion of women into the sex trade by pimps and traffickers. But we also see a great deal of women who have experienced, I suppose, that coercive factor in terms of poverty, a coercive factor that's pushed them into the trade, and they're under very significant and severe financial pressures. So all of these things, as you can imagine, makes the women very isolated, often very marginalized, often hard to reach. So I just wanted to share this with you from Elena, a young woman I interviewed from Latin America who's currently involved in the trade. And she talks about that kind of entrapment and the isolation. So she says, I go there to Ireland because I want to improve my English. But how I work and go to school, I could not, because the clients want me during the day and in the night. So for you to pay, she means to live, to survive, you need to do escorting, as she describes it, the whole time. It's like one circle. It's crazy because you don't stop. I had panic attacks. I started to take pills about this. And yes, it's changed a lot in my life because I can't have a relationship. I can't go out. I can't do nothing, you know. Like, yes, I save money. I help my family. And that's what a lot of women are doing, are supporting families. I help my family, but I feel like so much pressure in me. It's not life. And similarly, Natalia talks about what I suppose her experiences of being involved, but she has been in the trade for quite some time. She talks about what she does to deal with a difficult client. She has various techniques, but then you realize what she means when she's talking about a difficult client. They, the buyers, are the king, right? If they try to do something without a condom or something I really don't like, I give the money back. So she gives them the money back to get them out of the door as quickly as possible. And then she describes, I have one guy, he paid an hour. He stayed 40 minutes really raping me because there was blood on the condom. He tried hard with anal, but because he could not feel nothing and he was done with me, he stayed 40 minutes and I gave him his money back and asked him to leave. And I prefer that way. So when they leave, I text and I say, please don't call me again. And I block the number. And shocking as that example it is just one example of the violence, and the levels of sexual violence are absolutely rife in the trade and experienced by the women from buyers, but also from the pimps and the organizers. Okay, so who are the buyers? In contrast to the migrant women, they're primarily Irish, married or in a relationship, and tend to be well educated with incomes above the national average. All of our research on the buyers has shown that they're motivated very much by a strong sense of sexual entitlement and essentially the pursuit of their own desires. We also found a great deal of evidence that the buyers are aware of signs that women in the trade may be pimped or controlled, but this is literally no concern of theirs. They are not concerned about that. So just from words from the buyers themselves, we studied hundreds and hundreds of buyer reviews between wave 1 and wave 2 of the COVID-19 pandemic last year in Ireland. Buyers on the same site where they select women to purchase sexual access to, they also rate them out of 5 stars. They rate women for their appearance, the sexual satisfaction she gave the buyer, and the value for money. And they leave comments about their so-called encounter with the women. So here, what these buyers are really saying is that they describe that they feel very much entitled to purchase sexual access to women, even during a global pandemic, and regardless of the health consequences of that for all involved. So this guy is saying, after suffering from blue ball syndrome with being stuck at home for most of the time. So he was in lockdown, he was frustrated, he was annoyed, and slowly growing an arm Popeye would be proud of, I decided to bite the bullet and try something different. A good experience, and sorted these blue balls of mine big time. This guy's complaining that he was unhappy with the service he received. The service was rushed as she was clearly too busy, in and out in 10 minutes. My hand, unfortunately, had to be the tool in the end. So it seems to me like equating a woman's body to a tool or something that you use to sort out blue balls, I suppose just gives you a sense of the extent to which buyers objectify and really dehumanize the women that they're purchasing sexual access to. We know that women of colour are disproportionately represented in the sex trade across the globe, and that's reflected here in these buyers' views in terms of the kind of racial and ethnic stereotyping. So this guy says, if you like mature African ladies, this girl is perfect. Next time I want a big size ebony gal, he's talking about a black woman, this girl is top of the list. I have to admit I have a fetish for petite Asian girls. From the moment we met, she treated me like a king, fulfilling my deep and dark desires, whilst focusing on my every need. Guys, if you love petite girls who know how to slide, grind and shift as they work their slender frame around yours, this is the girl for you. Interesting that Natalia was reflecting earlier about the fact that the buyer is king, and their satisfaction is paramount. This guy also thinks that the buyers are king. And again, these are examples from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds that I've read with similar kind of themes coming through. So who are the third groups? The pimps and the profiteers. The Irish sex trade is worth 180 million euro per annum, and that is quite an old estimate now, so it's likely to be greater than that. People forget that this is a big business. It really is a big business, and there is absolutely so much evidence across the board from so many different sources of the involvement of organised crime gangs in the trade, both domestic and international. We see the organised movement of women around the country from place to place, again, to satisfy the demands of buyers in different locations. We see the presence of bookers who essentially arrange for the buyer to be able to see the woman they've selected online, and of course the pimps. We found a great deal of very concerning evidence about women who have no control over the buyers they see or the number of buyers, very little control or input into how they're advertised or the sex acts that they're supposed to perform. And also it was really interesting when we looked across the range of kind of gang activities in this area. We found that there are so many organised crime gangs that are involved in organising prostitution, but they have other illegal businesses as well. Robbery, blackmail, credit card cloning, supply of drugs, money laundering, fraud, cybercrime, the list goes on. And of course, there are many other profiteers in the trade. The advertisers, including the online platforms that advertise, and the landlords that are charging extortionate rents for their properties to be used as brothels. And of course, violence, I said, is rife in the trade and used as a means to coerce, control, and eliminate the competition. So I just wanted to give some attention to what I think is perhaps the silent majority. So when we talk about the issue of prostitution, we are always, kind of given the mantra that we must listen to sex workers. But the fact is, the majority of women in prostitution in Ireland do not identify as sex workers. As lots of women have said to me, prostitution is not who I am. It's just something I have to do. And so we have many women, as I've described at the beginning, who are migrant, who are mobile, not resident in Ireland, have limited English, who are not well or authentically represented by the sex work lobby groups in Ireland. They do not have the opportunity, and in many cases the freedom, to be engaging in any kind of political activism around sex work or anything else, because really they're just trying to live and survive and get by day to day. So the question is, who represents them? And is it really nobody who's effectively representing them? Are they a silent and perhaps also silenced majority? And very finally, I just want to say something about the models that either counter or promote the trade. In Ireland since 2017, we've had our kind of version of what's often known as the Nordic or quality model. It decriminalises those who sell sex, absolutely rightly so. It criminalises those who purchase it because we're tackling the demand. The trade doesn't exist without the buyers. So if we criminalise, we deter some buyers at least. And then we have older legislation which sanctions organisers and the profiteers, those who financially benefit from the trade. But what we often hear from the sex work lobby is a call for the full decriminalisation model. And although that maybe sounds like a positive thing, if we really understand what that looks like, very rightly it calls for the decriminalisation of those who sell sex, but it also calls for the decriminalisation of those who purchase it, and crucially for the decriminalisation of the organisers and profiteers. So who is most thrilled when they hear proposals for a model like this? The buyers are delighted, of course, because they can continue to purchase sexual access to women with impunity. But those that are most delighted of all, most thrilled by it, are of course the organisers and the profiteers, because it means one illicit aspect of their business can be made legitimate overnight, and they can profit and they can grow even more. Because under a full decriminalisation model, it's not your friendly local florist or grocer who opens up a brothel. It's the same guys we talked about earlier who involved in the credit card cloning, the fraud, the robbery, you know, and ruling really with an iron fist. So they are the ones that are delighted that at least one aspect of their business would suddenly become something that was legal overnight, and they could continue with impunity and maximise even their profits even further. So effectively, what this means is that those who constantly call for the full decriminalisation of the sex trade are, whether wittingly or unwittingly, in fact defending an entire trade that by all evidence is indefensible. I'm going to leave it there.
Thank you very much, Ruth. That was on so much information, so many truths spoken. So grateful. I'm sure that hard and all as it was to hear, I'm sure we're all very grateful for the work that you do.